Andrew, today and last night, a lot of your colleagues have been saying that this is the kind of action that the Prime Minister promised on Monday when he said there should be changes in Downing Street. I'm guessing that's not your view.
Well, that depends if you think that the Prime Minister was the instigator of these resignations or they're unplanned. To me, if it's not number 10 in meltdown, it certainly would appear to be in crisis. I don't think all of those resignations were planned by number 10. Ultimately, now I think is the time for cabinet ministers to show some leadership and go and tell Boris that the writing is not on the wall, it's on the wall in capital letters, and it's been there for quite some time. People who want to be leaders, leaders don't run away from trouble, they confront it and get it sorted, and that's what the cabinet needs to do now. Well, certainly if they think they're going to come and lobby me for support at the future leadership election, that is.
It's interesting, given that a lot of the criticism around this number 10 has been the policy direction, the net zero targets, the tax rises, the relatively unconservative agenda that so many people have described this Conservative government as pursuing. Does it not make sense, therefore, that some of the policy unit should change, that some of the people who are around the Prime Minister should go?
You're absolutely right on policy. I've struggled to vote with the government. I'm an old-fashioned, middle-of-the-road Thatcherite. I first joined the party when I was at university in the 80s. And I've not voted for the national insurance increases. I didn't vote for the debacle over Owen Paterson. I voted against Plan B. I've been very, very disappointed. But ultimately, advisors advise, ministers decide, and ultimately Boris Johnson placed all these people in positions of power in number 10, and really, quite honestly, the buck stops with him. I do wonder how many of those individuals who resigned, which certainly some of them we know, will have to be questioned over the 12 gatherings or parties that were held in number 10 during the lockdown, and whether this is a convenient reason for them to leave.
Yes, I think that does seem to be the reason behind some of these exits, particularly some of those people who are already in the public domain as having held parties or been at parties or indeed invited people to parties over the last 2 years under various forms of restriction.
Clearly, Tom, the bring your own bottle by Mr. Reynolds, that was so there was no paper trail for the drinks bill, which would have been inexplicable. I mean, that is almost an indication of the fact that they knew it was against the rules and they didn't want to be found out about it. That's inexcusable in my view.
It's pretty extraordinary, given that when that email was sent, allegedly some advisers within number 10, not least of all Dominic Cummings, raised concerns about this being an event against the rules, although it is an open question as to how much the Prime Minister would be doing his own personal emails, about whether he would have seen such an invite. So I think there is an argument here, is there not, that some of these senior civil servants who are operating relatively independently a lot of the time, they are at fault here, not just the Prime Minister.
Of course they are, but ultimately the Prime Minister recruited them. The Prime Minister is the head of number 10, the head of the government, and he sets the culture. He would have known what the culture was. And Tom, I had huge policy disagreements with Theresa May, as you are well aware, while she was Prime Minister, mainly over Brexit. I never once, though, questioned her integrity. Do any of your viewers think that any of these shenanigans would have gone on in the same circumstances if Theresa May had been Prime Minister? I don't for 1 minute. Therefore, that's a huge culture change in number 10 under Boris Johnson. And again, the buck stops with Boris. He can sack who he wants, but he appointed them all and he's allowed the culture to develop.